Welcome to the Sister Mentors Podcast. Sister Mentors has been nurturing the next generation of women of color leaders for 25 years. Our work centers around the needs and dreams of women and girls of color in the face of deep-seated institutional inequities found in the educational system. The lives of over 100 women and girls of color have been changed by Sister Mentors. These women and girls have evolved in astounding ways, and with the help of Sister Mentors, they are on their way to earning higher education degrees, particularly PhDs. This podcast features some of the mentors and mentees as they tell me about their lives and educational journeys. These women and girls share their moving stories of who they are, where they come from, and how Sister Mentors was instrumental in keeping them on their educational paths. In this episode, I chat with another mentor-mentee team, Bathsheba Bryant-Tarpeh and Ruth Solomon. In the fall of 2015, a very shy Ruth joined Sister Mentors and was introduced to Bathsheba as her mentor, who had only been with Sister Mentors for about a year. Throughout the years, Bathsheba helped Ruth out of her shell and grow into the confident young woman that she is today. I am your host, Kahmeela Adams. Thanks for joining me as we celebrate the bold past and fierce future of Sister Mentors here on the Sister Mentors Podcast. So let's get started with Ruth Solomon. Where do you hail from? What are your roots? What makes you you?
Well, I am ethnically from Ethiopia. I was born and raised in Northern Virginia, but I grew up in Ethiopia when I was younger, from like 4 to 5. And I was raised there by my grandparents, specifically my grandmother. And she taught me how to do many things. She taught me my first language, Amharic. And she's also the very person that also inspired me to be a doctor. When I visited Ethiopia a couple of years ago, she, exposed me to the maternal health issues happening in Ethiopia and, even some issues that happened to her. And she emphasized on the fact that there's a lack of medical centers and medical professionals there. And I saw that nothing or there wasn't a lot being done about that. So I was like, okay, I would want to make a difference, or I would want to help these people. So that's kind of, she inspired me to be a doctor, an OBGYN. I've always known I wanted to be in the health career, but I wasn't sure, what profession I wanted to be in. And to get a better understanding of what it's like to be in the medical field, in high school, I took a medical assistant course. And in this medical assistant course, I got the opportunity to shadow doctors at the Inova OBGYN Center in Falls Church. And there I would interact with patients. I would sometimes even go into the patient's room and either check their blood pressure, do small things with the doctor there. And recently this past summer, I also went to Ethiopia, where I shadowed various types of medical professionals, from pediatricians to emergency nurses to orthopedics and also OBGYNs. And I even saw more things than I did from shadowing doctors here, like wounds on various parts of the bodies to small operations. And I even saw a C-section birth.
Wow.
So that was cool.
That's intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of was in the beginning, but then after I kind of calmed down. And something that's also very important in my family is education. And that's the big thing that they engrave into me and my brother's heads when we were younger. Education, education, education. My parents came to the US from Ethiopia to seek better opportunities here for both, them and also my brothers and I. So, when I was younger, I was never asked do I want to go to college? It was more I will be going to college and I need to find a career path through that interests me and that I'd be successful in a field or area. And, I do feel very privileged to be in a country where I can further my education and, where I have all these opportunities and resources to help me be successful. Mm-hmm. And I think I think it's because my parents kind of lacked that maybe in Ethiopia, which is why they emphasize furthering our education a lot. And I'm glad they did that. And I'm glad I grew up being surrounded hearing that, both by my parents and sister mentors. And speaking of college, I'm currently a freshman at William and Mary, and I plan on majoring in neuroscience and minoring in biology on the pre-med track. As of right now, I'm halfway through my second semester of college and I'm loving it. It was a rough start at first because I'm away from family. I'm going to miss my friends, being in a new environment, being surrounded by different people. And I was getting a little homesick. But slowly that started to go away. And I found my friend group there. And, my family and friends would still call me even when I'm there. And even sister mentors, Bathsheba, Dr. Lewis, they still check up on me. Because, just because I'm in college doesn't mean I'm like done with sister mentors. They still follow up with me here. They check on me both like mentally and academically. And yeah, all in all, I love it so far.
Once you do graduate, once you're all the way done and every that, once you have become a doctor, is the goal to go practice medicine in Ethiopia?
Yes, the goal is to practice medicine in developing countries, and
Okay.
specifically, yeah, Ethiopia is one
Okay.
of them.
All right. Awesome. And Bathsheba, who are you? What are your roots? What makes you who you are?
Yes. Well, I am Bathsheba Felice Bryant-Tarpeh, so daughter of Arthur and Sheila Bryant, and I was raised like Ruth in Northern Virginia in Prince William County, so not far from Washington, D.C. And my family actually moved to the D.C. area when I was about 5 years old, from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And it was because my dad accepted a position at the U.S. Forest Service headquarters here in D.C. He previously spent the first part of his career with the Forest Service, but as a forest ranger. And he actually was the third African American to hold the job as district ranger for the entire Southern District of the United States. And my mom was in the federal service as well, and she worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Civil Rights. And so, like many African Americans, my family has Southern roots. And so both my parents are from Louisiana. My dad from Shreveport and my mom from a small town called Boyce, near Alexandria, which is in central Louisiana. And I have an older sister, Rachel, and so Rachel and I spent a lot of time with our relatives during our summers growing up in Louisiana, particularly where my mom grew up in Boyce on our family's farm. And so our great grandfather, which we call Daddy James, who lived to almost be 101 years old, he was born in 1896. So it was amazing to be able to spend time with him when we were spending time there, during our summers. But he purchased about 100 acres of land in 1945. And this land is still in our family. And he farmed that land along with my mom's dad, our grandfather. And of course, this is really significant because he purchased land at a time where, as you know, historically, it was really difficult for African Americans to not only purchase land, but really hold on to it
Yeah.
due to severe racism, of course, and discrimination in the Deep South. And so it's really, really important to my family. And actually, the road that our land runs on, the road that runs through it is called Cleveland Road, which is our family name.
Nice.
Yeah, and the original house that my great grandfather built is actually still stands. So it's been renovated, but the house that he built in 1945 still stands. For me personally, it had a huge impact for me in terms of my professional career because, it was my first, like I said, introduction to, small town rural life and just the significance of agriculture and land and farming systems and how significant that is for communities. And so in terms of my career and professional life, I am in international and global development. And so I work right now at the U.S. Agency for International Development. And so a lot of the work that I do in the Bureau for Resilience and Food Security is really supporting programs and policies to support communities around the world with our missions in countries all over the world, particularly in Africa, but supporting them with their livelihoods, resources, addressing issues of hunger and water insecurity issues, and of course, My particular focus and research that I did as part of my doctorate is looking at land and resource rights issues for women, because that's so critical for communities all over the world. It's just the source for life and its foundation. You have to have land.
Yeah.
And so that's just, a huge impact. Of course, my parents being in public service had a huge impact on me as well.
Yeah, that's great. So it seems like one of the many things I'm sure that you two have in common is that what your career goals kind of rooted really early in your life and by family. So basically that's a great thing. Like not many people can say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one thing like Ruth and I noticed when we started working together and I started mentoring her, and she already mentioned this, is education. Education was hugely important in both of our families. And I think for me, with my parents being raised in the Deep South, you know, in a time where segregation existed, my mom, actually desegregated her high school. They always taught me the significance of, our history and heritage, and just being, very proud of who you are and your identity as a person of, African descent, a woman of color in this country. And, I think growing up in Northern Virginia in the 90s in particular, it wasn't as diverse as it is now. And so oftentimes my sister and I, may have been kind of one or two or very few, women or girls of color in our class, for example, or in different activities. And so, it really inspired us to, for example, we chose to attend HBCU. So we both attended Spelman College, and I actually attended Howard University for my doctorate. And, just seeing kind of those examples, my dad attended Southern University for his undergraduate degree, and just, we've had relatives that I know. My great grand's uncle, I guess it would be, actually was a dentist and attended Meharry Medical School. And I just know we come from a long line of teachers and educators in our family. My grandmother was educators and, taught Head Start. So I know Ruth and I, we found these connections and significance of education being really, really important to us in our families. And I think Sister Mentors really continue to foster that, and just kind of that example of us continuing that within our families and being role models as well to other girls and women in our communities. And I think it really fosters that ripple effect that Dr. Lewis often talks about in terms of how we can model kind of your aspirations and really moving up and reaching your goals in life. And just education is just a huge part of that.
That's really something, yeah. What prompted you to join Sister Mentors, Bathsheba? And when did you?
So I joined Sister Mentors in 2014. I had just completed my coursework within my PhD journey. So I was in the African Studies department at Howard University and focusing on gender development and public policy. And in 2014, as I mentioned, I was finishing my coursework. A close family friend of my husband told me about Sister Mentors. And also another mentor of mine, Miss Fanny Allen, who is a close friend of Sister Mentors. She actually holds etiquette classes and leadership training for the girls and Sister Mentors. So I know Ruth knows very well Miss Fanny Allen, and she's a really great personal mentor of mine. But she told me about Sister Mentors. And so I just hearing kind of the model about it, how, Dr. Lewis and the program supports women of color working on their doctorates. I thought this was an amazing program. And then also to get the opportunity to mentor young girls, I just was like, okay, I need to find more out about this program and find out more. So I got connected to Dr. Lewis finally through Miss Fanny Allen, and kind of just it blossomed from there. I joined in 2014, and the rest is history, as you would say. So can't believe it's been almost 10 years at this point.
That's great. I've heard so many good things about Fanny Allen, throughout this process.
She's amazing. And yeah, and she's had a really illustrious career in the Foreign Service as well with the State Department. So she's been a great mentor of mine.
Oh, that's awesome. And Ruthie, when did you join and what prompted you to do so?
I joined Sister Mentors when I was in sixth grade. So like about 7, 8 years ago. And I was introduced to Sister Mentors by my older cousin, who was in Sister Mentors at that time. And, she told me and my father that, like it's a program for girls of color and it helps us like academically. And we would also be able to like build various skills there, like communication skills, public speaking skills, build our self-esteem and even leadership skills, like, Bathsheba said. Um, and I was like, okay, those are things that I probably should work on, So I was like, this is probably a really good program that I should join, and I joined it. And speaking of the leadership skills, um, every year Sister Mentors has a workshop with Miss Fanny Allen where we learn about like self-discipline, leadership, and how to build our communication skills. And these workshops have taught me to, maintain good relationships and keep in contact with people that will help me both professionally and personally in the future. And another thing I did because of Sister Mentors is when I realized that leadership is very important, I founded the Ethiopian and Eritrean Club at my high school.
Oh, that's really awesome.
And yeah, the mission of the club was to, create a safe space for Ethiopian and Eritrean students and also like address issues going on back home and here in the US.
So when did you two first meet? And I know, how were you two paired up? I know you both have mentioned how you're both introverts. So was that kind of a thing that, these both of these ladies are introverts. Maybe they can bring something out in each other. Or was it just kind of like a random thing?
Well, I know it's been almost 8 years. So we met. I first started working with Ruth the fall of 2015, and so Ruth was in sixth grade at the time, and so it's hard to believe it's been that long. And I just remember we were, at Allen Coolidge Burke Branch Library in Alexandria, where we often would meet and have our Saturday sessions. And it was the beginning of the school year where oftentimes, new girls in the program often have to get paired up with a mentor. And I know that my previous mentee had graduated from high school, and so I didn't have a mentee. And I just remember Dr. Lewis just thought that we were a good pairing, a good fit for each other. And I just remember her just saying, you guys seem like a good fit, and just putting us together. But I don't know if Ruth remembers anything else from us getting paired up.
Yeah, I remember joining in sixth grade. And I also remember being very, very shy when I joined Sister Mentors and when I also met Bathsheba. I remember that I was with my cousin and my dad when we first walked into the room and we greeted Dr. Lewis. She sat us down. She talked to us for a bit. She asked for my interests and stuff. And I also remember that whenever my Dr. Lewis would ask me a question or when Bathsheba would ask me a question, I'd look at my father or my cousin and they would answer it for me, even though I would know the answer to it. It's just for some reason I was just really shy. And I also remember we used to read a lot of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory together.
Yes, yeah. I remember the first meeting. As Ruth mentioned, she was very shy. She was a bit hesitant. I think she was unsure about what this mentoring program was all about. But she was very, very sweet. And so, as she mentioned, we would often work on her reading and just reading comprehension. And so because we were in the library, it was great that we had easy access to a plethora of books. And so her favorite book she would always select almost every time was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So it was great, though, from month to month for her to get stronger in her reading skills and some words that she may have been struggling with, for it to just be easier for her as we, went from month to month. But yeah, that was one of her favorite books.
Ruth, was there anything in particular that Bathsheba did to help bring you out of your shell, or was it just time?
I think it was, I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was time, and I also think, I don't know, she was also very, really patient. She was very patient with me. So I think she understood why I was shy because I was new and stuff. So I think, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
In your opinions, is there a significance in your relationship that makes it special or unique?
I believe there is. She helps me grow both academically and personally. And I think it's unique because I get to have a mentor who's just like me, like a woman of color who's working to further her education. And when I was younger, I went to um, a predominantly white private school, and being the only Black girl in my first, second, and third grade class was kind of difficult because I spotted my differences from
Hmm.
others, and they also did too.
Right.
And I guess they thought it was bad or they didn't like it because I was bullied for it. And it started small with my like quote unquote different hair, then quote unquote my silly accent, and it
Mm.
escalated to like my quote unquote weird features.
Hmm.
And being surrounded with that, at a young age kind of made me think, okay, I'm different. That's not good. So I try to do whatever I possibly could to fit in,
Mm.
whether it was to like straighten my hair or like to talk differently. Um, and being paired with Bathsheba, a strong, beautiful Black woman, reassured me that I'd be fine. And she inspired me to be just like her. I knew, like, in the moment that, like, I can be like her. And just because I may look different than other people or talk differently than other people doesn't mean that I can't do something just as good as them or even better.
Oh, that is beautiful. Bathsheba, how does that make you feel knowing that you inspired Ruthie in yet another amazing, really prominent way in just, how she sees and views herself?
Yeah, no, it warms my heart, and just to hear her say that, thank you so much, Ruth. It's so sweet, and just to
Thank you.
see and hear her talk about her story, just the struggles and challenges that she had when she was younger, just around feeling different and being bullied, and just kind of those traumatic experiences that she had. It can be, holds a really kind of negative impact on you, but I think Ruth has been empowered by it as well, and I'm just so proud of her that she's overcome so many of those challenges and obstacles and really turned it into, being such a powerful young woman. And I know that she's going to do amazing things. She's already done amazing things. And it's just wonderful to see.
Obviously, you spend enough time with somebody, whether you're academically mentoring or whatnot, but was there time spent that was just more of on building a personal relationship between you two, and what did that look like?
For the academic part, she's helped me academically during both these meetings and outside of the meetings by, checking up on me, we would set academic goals. Um, uh, we'd like find new ways to study for some of the classes that I have trouble in, or we'd like talk about how I'm going to approach my teacher and ask help for this or that, and what I could do to get better grades on all. And for personally, we would meet outside of these meetings and meet up, like watch movies and stuff. And if we don't have time to meet up, then we'd call or text each other and check up on how we're doing and what we've been up to so far.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the important things in terms of mentoring a mentee mentor relationship is just being really intentional about building that relationship. And so, of course, the goal of Sister Mentors is to really, develop and foster kind of the educational, academic, and spiritual well being of the women and girls in our program. And so, we really want to make sure that we're not only focusing on academics, but of course the personal and spiritual well being as well. So it was great to just be able to talk on the phone or send an email to check in on Ruth in between the times where we met once a month. And I think, as time went on and as, Ruth got older and got into high school, of course, we were closer. And I think for me, being the youngest, I only have an older sister. Ruth was like a younger sister to me. And I think she would appreciate it as well. She's the oldest in her family with two younger brothers. And so it was nice to have that outlet, I'm sure, for her.
That's cute.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's wonderful to learn, about her family and, hearing about her family. And I often, found myself too, if I was stressed or overwhelmed during, school, when I was in graduate school, working on my doctorate, I would share that with her as well. So it was definitely a two-way street. And definitely, if work was stressing me out or, there were some challenges I was facing, I would share that and talk with Ruth about it with her as well.
And what does your relationship look like now? Are we still checking in with each other?
Yeah, I think we went from mentor and mentee to more like friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and like I said, I think it's, deeper than friends. I think it definitely is a sisterhood. It's, a sister relationship. And I think that's what I really love. For me, it's the first time, I've participated in mentoring programs before, but this was the first time being a part of Sister Mentors where I had a one-on-one relationship with a mentee. So, now it's been almost really 10 years, 8 years, almost a decade. So for me, Ruth, I do consider a little sister, and it's just been great to watch her growth and development. And that's just really special to me. So I just can't wait to see her go through college and really now, Ruth, we have to start working in a couple years on your medical school applications.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. I would also say it's sister too, because like you said, I only have two younger brothers and I'm the oldest. So I really don't have an older sister like that. So I would definitely consider you an older sister for me. And I feel like I've also seen you go to like get your doctorates. And I've also, you've talked to me about how it's like in your work field. And yeah, I definitely see it as like an older sister. And I love that.
Oh. Bathsheba, how has Ruth impacted your life as a professional woman of color?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's impacted my life in so many ways. And, as I've mentioned, we help each other out. I think, of course, the focus, as we mentioned, Ruth is strategizing about how she can improve her grades or, work on a certain aspect of, her academic life that she maybe was struggling with. But, I think one aspect was public speaking. We both are introverts and, public speaking is something that we do well, but it's not our favorite thing to do. We like to feel prepared when we do it. And so I think that's something that, some of the tips and techniques that I gave her, I also practice myself. And it's something, for example, a tip I would challenge her, at school to, set a goal for yourself and try to raise your hand and ask a question in a couple of classes next week or something to that effect. And I also try to practice that as well. And then, I always saw Ruth pushing herself to take advanced courses and to make sure that she's challenging herself. And I know for me, I think, pushing myself to seek those professional development opportunities or leadership roles, whether it's, in my career or job or in, another organization or civic organizations that I'm a part of, is just continuing to, seek out those opportunities, to be able to just continuing developing my leadership skills, and just really knowing that, I am enough. I have the skills and that I can do it. And I think that's something that we both foster between each other and just keeping each other encouraged. I know right now I'm really excited that I've been able to, I've been appointed as co-lead for a special project at work, which I know, it's specifically on gender equality and women's empowerment, which is something that's really important to me. And, I've been able to take my skills and all of the research and the work that I did in graduate school with my PhD, and be able to continue to apply it in the work that I'm doing.
Is there anything that you both found at Sister Mentors that you didn't find anywhere else?
I think I briefly talked about this before, but I think I would say my public speaking and my self-esteem, like those skills. Like for public speaking, like I remember whenever we'd have like guest speakers come into our mentoring session, they'd give us like small activities to work on. And I would work on those activities. But then at the end, when we'd wrap everything up, they'd ask questions about it and stuff like that. And I remember like I'd know the answers to some of the questions and I'd turn around and I'd look at Bathsheba and like I'd be too scared to like answer. So I'd like tell her what the answer is. And I remember there would be some days where like, she'd encourage me to raise my hand and I'd raise my hand and, I'd answer it. Or like there would be days where I would be too scared to answer the question because I think I might have it wrong. And she would raise her hand and she'd answer like a part of the question. And then she'd be like, oh, Ruth, I think Ruth also has some more things to add on to that. And then, I'd tell like what I think, what I'd add on to her answer. Sorry. And, about self-esteem, like how I talked about before, like bullying, even though it was a traumatic experience, like Bathsheba might not have known it at the time, but she definitely helped me overcome it by building my self-esteem. And so has Sister Mentors by surrounding me with, powerful women of color.
Is that something that you kind of kept to yourself as it was happening, the bullying?
The bullying, I kept to myself as in, I wouldn't say I kept it to myself. Well, it was only me and my parents that
Well, I
knew
mean,
about it.
like Bathsheba
Yeah.
didn't know about it at the time.
I think I told her like later on.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told her later on because it happened when before I joined Sister Mentors.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and she definitely didn't tell me about it until much later on, probably until really when we were working on your college essays. So probably towards we started working on them your junior year.
My end of
junior year. And then she opened about it because it was something that she felt was important to share in her college essays. And so that's when she really told me about her story. And it really kind of made sense to me in terms of maybe why she may have been a little bit shy or, slow to open up when we did first meet. But it was, I felt really happy that she felt comfortable enough to share that with me as well, something that happened when she was younger. But, she was, of course, that has lasting effects on you, years later. Yeah.
Ruth, you said you had, early on you were going to predominantly white schools. When you joined Sister Mentors, was this like the first time that you found yourself surrounded by so many women of color?
Yes. Yes, it was my first time. Like even after I moved schools, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was predominantly white, but I definitely think that Sister Mentors was the first time where I, saw that many people like all in a room at once. And I was like, whoa, like where have I been this entire time? Like I've been missing out,
Exactly. So what advice do you each have for other mentors and mentees so they can also have a meaningful long-term relationship?
An advice I would have is to be honest with one another, build a strong relationship, try to hold that bond. And I think that you should help each other grow. So like if one person has a problem, like they should know that they can always come to the other, to like their mentor, vice versa.
Yeah, and just, as I mentioned before, just really be intentional about fostering that relationship. So even, as we've mentioned, outside of the time that we had together once a month on Saturday for 4 hours, we would continue communicating in the time between. And I think that's for any mentee-mentor relationship is to really just be intentional. And really, I think it's important to have different mentors for different aspects of your life, whether it's spiritual or health and wellness, academic or professional. I think I have always benefited from having a mentor, but I've always benefited from mentoring others as well. And so I think it's just really important to pay it forward and mentor others, and just continue to just motivate each other. It's just a really aspect of life. I think sisterhood and just the power of womanhood is just really important.
Yes, it most definitely is. And on that note, Ruthie, I'm sorry, may I call you Ruthie?
Yes, sure. A lot of people call me that.
I took some liberties there.
I love it. I love that.
But do you, in the future, do you see yourself as coming back to Sister Mentors as a mentor?
Yes, I do see myself coming back to Sister Mentors as a mentor because, I would also like to help girls that may have been in my position, or I would also love to help girls that, just want like an older sister.
Yeah.
For someone to like help them or inspire them.
That's awesome. And do either of you two have any plans to see each other in person in the future?
Yes,
hopefully,
of course.
yes, in the summer when I come back from college.
Yes. I co-chair along with Trita Grayson, who's also a graduate with her PhD of the program, the Sister Mentors Alumni Association. So it's just a network of all of the girls and women who have graduated with their, high school degrees, their college degrees, masters and doctorates. And it's just a network of all of us to continue to stay connected. And so we host different programs. We have a reunion every June ahead of our special celebration we have for all of our graduates. So I know Ruth spoke at the reunion last year, but it's just a continuation to really stay connected and foster that sisterhood that we've built while being in the program. So we're not done with you yet, Ruth.
Well, that's great. That's so important because you're right. You guys have taken so much time and seen so many highlights of each other's lives in these early stages. Like, why would you lose connection? Why wouldn't you all still want to be connected and still want to be a part of the wins and the celebratory events in your lives? That's great. That's something that's absolutely necessary. It's this sisterhood that Sister Mentors is all about that I am extremely, I admire a lot about this organization. So thank you both so much for sharing your story with me. It helps me get to know just more about Sister Mentors as an organization and just also as a fellowship, which is just something that's extremely important. And I wish there was a Sister Mentors in every state. I wish there was, and I wish I had something like this when I was in high school. So this is.
I know it's a very special program, and there's not another organization I think that has the same model. So it's very, very special and very unique.
Yeah.
What Dr. Lewis has started.
For more information on Sister Mentors, a project of EduSeed, please visit sistermentors.org. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Sister Mentors. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and don't be afraid to share. This podcast was produced by Rugged Angel Productions for Sister Mentors.